It can be devastating when your spouse, who is the love of your life, passes away. How do you move forward? And what can your family, friends, and church community do to bring comfort? Well, our guest today on Excellent Living has walked that journey. Patricia Ashley is a national speaker, Bible teacher, and author of the book, Marriage is a Blessing. She was married to her childhood sweetheart, Vernon Ashley, for 48 years. He transitioned to heaven in 2018 after a long illness. Pat sat down with our host, Cheryl Martin, to talk candidly about grieving the loss of her dear husband, but also choosing to thrive by taking steps to move forward.
Pat, first of all, it's a delight to have you on Excellent Living. I was first introduced to you and your ministry years ago when one of your presentations at a women's retreat was featured on Focus on the Family. You were powerful, practical, and humorous. And so over the years, that broadcast has become one of the most popular programs airing on Focus on the Family. Do you still get feedback about it?
In fact, I'd like to just thank you, Cheryl, for this opportunity to share with your audience. To answer your question, I just got calls yesterday that people were hearing the message and that it was being aired again. And so I think it was aired again on Tuesday and Wednesday. So evidently, it's meeting a need, and I'm grateful for that. It was my story and the word wrapped in one.
Well, over the years, I'm delighted to say that we've spoken at some of the same conferences, and that's where I met your husband, Vernon. You found out later that he was the one who sent your talk to Focus on the Family.
Absolutely. Without my knowing, and it took him a long time before he shared with me that he was the one who had sent it in.
Vernon traveled with you quite a bit, so he was a ministry partner as well, wasn't he?
Absolutely. In fact, he did all of my bookings and communicated with the ministries that were inviting me in. So he coordinated and dealt with all of that.
So I'm sure that when he transitioned in 2018, that meant a great adjustment for you. How many years did Vernon experience failing health?
You know, Cheryl, it started gradually and it just built and became chronic. So it was at least about 10 or 11 years.
So you were a couple of faith. So were you praying for God to heal Vernon?
Absolutely. I was fully persuaded that God would heal Vernon. In fact, Cheryl, I met and I knew Jesus as a healer before I knew him as Savior. So I had no doubt that he would heal Vernon.
And so what was your response when that wasn't the case?
Right before Vernon passed, I was standing over his bed and he was on hospice in the house. And I was looking at him, and in my heart, I said, if my love could heal you, you would rise up from here. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, mine can. And then the Lord said, in fact, the healer is living inside of him right now. And then the Lord said, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is inside of him right now. And about 2 days later, he was gone. And so God settled it with me that he was sovereign and that he could heal Vernon and that he had the ability to heal him. And for me, as much as, as painful as it had to be well with me. And I moved to a place of, God, help me not to have an attitude that Vernon got to see you before me. And then the process of being healed and grieving in a healthy way took place.
Now, when Vernon was ill, did the two of you ever have conversations about what he wanted your life to be like after his death if indeed God did not heal him?
As we were on our way to the hospital for his surgery, he said to me, if I don't come out of this on the other side, meaning, if he passed, he said, don't be angry with God and keep serving the Lord. And he knew that that was my passion and his. And at the time, I didn't take it. I kind of shushed him because I thought, you're coming out of this. Let's not even have that conversation. I mean, who wants to have those conversations? And it wasn't until after he indeed passed that what he said came back to me.
Did that help strengthen you?
It did. And a lot of who he was in life strengthened me because he wasn't the kind of person that sat and moped. And there were times when the heaviness of grief would come over me, or if I wanted to go into that dark place, I would hear him say, get up, get up. And that I knew that in order to serve the Lord, I needed to be spiritually healthy and emotionally healthy. And I knew I couldn't be angry with God and be all of those. And so just in those two instructions alone, it challenged me to grieve in a healthy way.
And what does that look like, Pat, when you say grieve in a healthy way?
For me, Cheryl, and I think for everybody, there are certain parts that's different because grief is personal. But for me, it was living in the moment, being honest with my emotions, allowing myself to have emotions, understanding that triggers was real, and not running from the reality, and being getting help, counseling, professional counseling, grief share. I needed help, and it was something that I knew that I needed help in, and knowing my limits, and I knew that I had limits, and just honoring and respecting those limits.
Go into more detail about grief share and counseling and how those two resources helped you. How do they help people, women especially, who have lost a spouse?
Well, because it's uncharted territory. I mean, it's new. It's a place that you've never been in before. And I had no reference points for dealing with the loss of the love of my life, the partner, my friend. We were friends, and I had no point of reference for it. So it was uncharted territory. And even my emotions, I experienced emotions that I had never experienced before. And having needing help to navigate with that and put in perspective what I was experiencing emotionally, being able to describe that to someone, and have someone to ask me questions that I didn't even know that I needed answers for. And professional counseling helped me with that. And Grief Share is a national ministry. It's Christian based, biblically based. I think it's a 13-week course. And what I appreciated about it was it just kind of helped you to navigate through some of the places and put language to some of the emotions that you were experiencing. That's kind of the best way I can describe it, Cheryl.
Now, you mentioned to me you went through grief share more than once.
Yeah, in fact, I did grief share at least, I know 3 times.
Okay.
And my daughter asked me, was I trying to get a PhD in grief share? I told her no, I was trying to be healthy. And I knew that I just needed, because every time I went through it again, uh, I discovered and other questions were answered, or language was given to me, and I received help every time I went through.
Because you probably heard different things
Absolutely,
each time because you were in a different place.
absolutely. And for some reason, that you go through physical changes, emotional changes, spiritual changes, you go through all kind of changes. And for me, I realized that my memory was affected, and it was easier to go back over the information again and just let it speak to me, and it did.
What has been the biggest adjustment since Vernon's transition?
Ooh, oh, not having my friend. We grew up. We met summer of the 9th grade, so we were kids, and we
Mhm.
literally grew up together, and we fellowshipped. We Vernon was adventurous. He was the opposite of who I was, and I enjoyed that. And the covering, I at first I almost panicked at the thought of not having a good covering, because he was just a no nonsense person, cut through all of the stuff. Things were black and white, with me there was colors and flowers in the picture, but he would just get straight to the point, and I felt safe with that. And so when he passed, that was something that I missed, and I missed the fellowship. Yeah.
So, how vital, Pat, as you have walked through this journey, how vital has an intimate relationship with the Lord been in your journey now that you are wearing a title that you didn't want, and that is widow?
You know what? You're absolutely correct, Cheryl. In fact, I remember telling a friend, I said, I don't even like the title widow. I said, now I like what the Bible promised the widow. I said, but the title, oh my goodness, it's been vital to the point of my sanity. Uh,
Mm.
in fact, my relationship with the Lord is the only thing that equipped me and prepared me to deal with the loss and the absence of my husband. Even going through his illness, it was the grace of God. And I kept knowing the word that says, God's grace, it abounds. And the Bible says that if you need grace, God will give it. And if you need even more, he'll add it. And if it's crazy, he'll multiply it. And I began
Mhm.
to pull on, and still do, pull on the multiplied grace of God. And God promised me that he was going to take care of me. He really did. Even before Vernon, even before I realized how chronically ill he was, God promised me that he was the one had already always taken care of me, and that he would always take care of me. And he's been doing that.
That is wonderful. Even those times when you have felt overwhelmed.
Mm, absolutely. And you know what? When I feel overwhelmed, it's a signal for me to slow down.
Pat, you were Vernon's caretaker for most of the time that he was. He'll talk about that experience and the importance of self care.
You know, as women, we are natural nurturers. And so it's easy for us to just attend to. And as Vernon's health began to decline, I felt honored to give care to him, number one. And also, I had been sick before, chronically ill, and God healed me. But while I was sick, God healed me and restored my health from lupus. And while I was ill, Vernon took care of me. I saw a whole new side of him. And I told the Lord, I said, God, you know, you have a sense of humor. You let me go first so that I could see what it looked like. And so I was committed to giving Vernon the care that he had given me. And in doing so, you can be so committed to caring for the person that you can almost neglect yourself. No, you can neglect yourself. And there would be times where I would get tired and didn't even realize how exhausted I was. And so I became aware of the fact that in order for me to keep giving him care, I needed to also take care of me. And so I coined the phrase self-care without being selfish. And I would go to the gym, and there was a swimming pool, and I would get in the water, and for some reason the water would just help me to release stress. And I found things to do that were stress relievers. And that helped me. And the more I took care of me, I was better able to give him care with a sweet spirit. Because when you get tired, your patience becomes short. And then you can act in ways that you can later be ashamed of. And I really wanted to honor him, and I wanted him to know that I was grateful for the opportunity to care for him. And I wanted to care for him with dignity. And I knew that I couldn't do that tired and ran down. And so I did. I would take care of me.
I love this because you're talking about being intentional about putting in the calendar some me time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Talk about the importance of presence for family, friends, and church members during the illness of a loved one and even the subsequent death of a loved one's spouse. The importance of that.
Cheryl, if I could say where sometimes people can miss it, it's right there with being a support. And really, I'm so grateful. In fact, I had a chance to talk with my youngest son, who's a registered nurse, he and his wife. And I still thank them today for their support. They literally moved in. And I really believe that that's when it's time for family, immediate family, to move in. And it's not about you. And, you know, and a lot of times, especially when you're in ministry, people are used to you being a source and a resource. And sometimes just showing up and giving the person the freedom to talk if they want to talk. If they don't want to talk, give them that freedom. And then if you can meet practical needs, do that. And so that's invaluable. And knowing how to, like I said, free the person to communicate if they want to. And if they don't, just let them know I'm here. I had a couple of friends who had husbands that offered their service for things that we needed. So there's practical ways you can meet needs, look for it. And when you come, especially if it's a death, or even I had one friend, she would bring food to my house every Sunday and a check.
Wow.
And I would be like, I really don't need the check. But the Lord said, just put it aside. But she would bring food every Sunday. And she
without you asking, because some people will say, you know, reach out if you need me, but that puts the onus on the person.
Do not ask. If you know what, and if you want to meet a need, give them money, because they can then do what they need to do. But if you know them well enough, bring food or give them money or encouraging words. There's so many things that we can do to be a spirit lifter. But you have to make it about the person and not about yourself.
What advice do you have for churches? And in your opinion, how do you rate churches on meeting the needs of widows?
Cheryl, I really like being positive and but an honest response to that is I don't know if the church generally even realize that there's a great need in that area. One, especially after COVID, a lot of people have lost loved ones. And just like we have ministries for singles and ministry for married couples, there should be something in place for widows that where the church can meet practical needs or offer, even if you don't, do it. I mean, in the sense of, even if the person doesn't need it, offer practical needs. And there are practical needs, especially for females, heavy lifting, moving things like that, or yard work, or there's so many things that can be done in a practical way. And but there's not enough being done. Let me say that. That's a shortcoming in most ministries.
And I'm sure your eyes became open when you joined the Widows Club.
Listen, I wanted to go back to every friend who had ever lost a husband that I thought I had ministered to and apologize. Because I realized it's not until, you try to put yourself in their place to feel, but it's not until you experience it. And I did. I remember calling a couple of sisters saying, listen, girl, look, I missed you and I'm sorry.
So you can identify with that verse when Apostle Paul said, when you've been comforted by God, you know how to comfort others and walk alongside them.
Absolutely.
What is your advice to others now on this journey?
My one advice is loss and grief is as much a part of life as anything else is, of winning and gaining. And grieving in a healthy way and being sensitive to those who are grieving is necessary. Because if we live long enough, we're going to experience loss. And some of us earlier than others, but having a healthy mindset as it relates to loss. Knowing that for me, the most important thing in my life, I haven't lost. And that's my relationship with Christ. I remember reading Erwin Lutzer's book, 1 Minute After You Die. And he talked about death for the believer in a way that made you homesick for heaven. And then he talked about death for the unbeliever that would literally scare you out of hell. If you read the book, and even in reading the book, I was kind of intellectually aware, but emotionally and otherwise, there was just no preparation, just having my relationship with the Lord and him covering me and keeping me. In fact, the women who ministered, who touched me in some real deep places were women who had lost their husbands, godly women who had lost their husbands. They were the ones who really came in and just ministered to me.
Pat, what does your life look like now? What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm trying to honor my husband's encouragement of cultivating, intimacy with the Lord. I enjoy my time alone with him, and being still committed to ministry. My desire is to finish strong. I do volunteer work at the county jail, and I enjoy it. In fact, I said I enjoy it so much. If they knew how much I enjoyed it, they would charge me to do it. I want to do the things that will cause God to say to me, well done. And one of the things I say to people, if you want to hear him say, well done, then you have to do well. And for me, doing well first is being committed to growing spiritually and being committed to, and that is being conformed to the image of Christ on a daily basis, and then encouraging others to grow.
Pat Ashley, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, being very transparent about the stages you went through, but most importantly, how God was with you every step of the way. Thank you so much.
The loss of a spouse can produce a myriad of emotions. Beloved Bible teacher and author Pat Ashley offers hope and encouragement to so many in the early stages of grief by sharing her story here on Excellent Living. Her best friend and husband, Vernon Ashley, went to heaven in 2018 after a prolonged illness. As Pat shared, her relationship with Christ was and remains her anchor as she moves forward. You can listen to this interview again and share it with others when you visit our website, excellentliving.org. Join us next time when our relationship expert, Dr. Johnny Parker, joins Cheryl Martin for their monthly dialogue.